Today on Rebooked.
There were more meat on this bone than there is. Then I could deal with a little intrigue.
Can we make the case that they're adding meat to the bone? Can we make that case?
Maybe, but I feel like the meat's vegan. Like it's synthetic. I think this was Harley Cameron's best match to date. This, to me, sums up the Death Riders storyline right now. It is the white t-shirt of storylines right now.
Welcome back to episode 63 of Rebooked, the show where we talk about the meaty men and women who be slapping that meat in the middle of the square circle, the story they tell in the process, brother. I'm GB, have Jake here. Matt's not with us today. He won't be with us this week, but he'll be back next week. And then we got to figure out what's going on because I'm going to Bangkok for a gig. So that's going to be fun. Jake, how are you, buddy? Good week of wrestling. How's everything been? Good
with wrestling. Not bad. Just like you said, watching a little wrestling, playing a little Marvel Rivals, probably too much. It's occupying a lot of my time.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest with you. I might need to take a step back just to take care of things in
your life. Address the things around you as the world comes crumbling down.
But all that's such a bummer. So I'd rather just play Marvel.
That's true. That's true. I would rather just dive in as Captain America and beat the shit out of people in the back lines. It's a super fun game. If you haven't had a chance to play Marvel Rivals, it's awesome. On today's episode, we have a lot to cover because AEW Grand Slam was loaded. Really, a lot of things happened on the show, but a lot of things also didn't happen in that show. So we'll talk about all of that. And then, of course, we talk about AEW Revolution as we get ready for the big event right here in Los Angeles. That is going to be super sick. Still debating if I want to go or not, but we're figuring that out. More on that soon. So we'll talk about that and so much more, as well as our Rebooked 24/7 champion of the week. And our editor Scan already sent me his submission, and it's a good one. Let's go ahead and jump into things and talk about the big show that happened this past Saturday, AEW Grand Slam Australia. Look, Jake, I want to get your top line thoughts. What did you think of the show? Did you get a chance to dive into it fully? What were your thoughts?
I did. Overall, I thought it was a pretty good show. It had a little of everything. I think it had it was a solid show. I mean, I had a couple surprises and had some fun moments.
Yeah.
I thought the matches were good.
Yeah.
I think we may, I don't know. I'm kind of interested to see where things go storyline wise. Cause like you said, we got Revolution coming up. And so I think there are some question marks going into that for sure.
Yeah.
But we had some big moments on this show, of course, the main event, which, we're going to talk about. And but first, the Mercedes Harley Cameron match.
Actually, glad you're talking about that. Let's dive into it. Yeah. Let's talk about it.
I think this was Harley Cameron's best match to date.
I agree.
You can see her improving each and every week. And that's fantastic because, look at this picture.
It's so silly.
Her peeking over the apron with Minnie Monet.
It's so silly.
It's so silly, but it's so great. And I was almost right about Minnie Monet interfering or being used as a weapon.
It's eerie how good you are at kind of calling out these things, because honestly, the whole time I was like, okay, we know the puppet's going to play a role somehow, but how? And then I'm seeing it unfold and I'm like, there's just no way Jake's going to get it right again. Didn't work out, but it still was quite funny. I think one of the things that to kind of step out of the, storyline bubble for a bit to just talk overall about the show before we dive into the matches and what we should be expecting moving forward. I really feel like AEW could have completely blundered this, and it could have been really a bad show. It could have ended up like an episode of Battle of the Belts or something like that just kind of just got tossed to the side, didn't really get a lot of planning and preparation put into it because of whatever reasoning. And a lot of things happened to like make this show, the position that, or put the show in the position that it was in, with the arena change. And I was even seeing Matt was mentioning to us earlier about discourse with the ring issue and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't know, I think it's incredible that we live in a time where a major North American wrestling promotion can do a sold out show in an arena, however many people, I think it was like 20 something, 23 or 1,000, or I don't remember, and still like sell a lot of tickets. Like, that's really cool. That's really cool. That's super sick. And it's also great that this show,
and in another country,
exactly, in another country, more importantly. And it featured talent from, that region,
from said country,
that I think actually got built up quite nicely. And Harley Cameron is exactly one of those people. This thing is so silly. It was so fun. It was great. But as we had talked about, we discussed what the what the results would be and what we thought was going to happen. And we knew that Mercedes Mone, like, look, I think that a lot of us had the hope. We had the desire to see it come to fruition. But Mercedes Mone right now is just way too valuable to the company in the role that she's in, clearly. But this is where I want the conversation to go.
Which is what?
Well, she's still one of the most well-known, faces in professional wrestling. And she's also been, featured in Disney shows, and she's continuing to raise her stock a little bit. That being said, I know exactly where you're going to go with this. So I'm not like, it would have been better to put the belt on Harley Cameron, but I don't know why, but I have this sinking suspicion that they're going to do something with Mercedes Mone and Athena from Ring of Honor. And that's kind of, it gets kind of like, I don't know. I want to believe it, but I don't know. Like, I don't want to bring something into and that isn't like really all that feasible, because it's like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense why you'd keep the belt on her. And again, though, it was only the first time she fought for the belt, so it's not like, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, but what's wrong with that? That's the kind of thing that bothers me. Like, is especially for wanting to attach some sort of realism to it. Like, does the better team often win in sports? Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure, but not always. And I don't think there's anything wrong with seeing like like, what's wrong with seeing the underdog win just once, even if it is briefly? Yeah. I still think that that's fun. It's something you can do another match and correct the ship or whatever. But sometimes a team just has your number. Sometimes a competitor just has your number, and it's just not your day. And I think that that's okay to see. I welcome seeing that on occasion in wrestling, of just like, because that's part of what makes it fun, right? I mean, like, look at the Eagles, right? We'll just use the Eagles because they're the most recent example. Sports. They lost 3 games this season. 2 games, 3 games. But see, that's my point. No one remembers who they lost to. They remember that they're the champion. Yeah. You can still do that. Yeah. You can still have somebody win, even if it is briefly. Like, they just, like, sometimes everything just clicks. Yeah. And sometimes, like, Ohio State just beat the shit out of everybody in college football playoffs this year. They lost to Northern Illinois. Like, I mean, or was that Notre Dame? But anyway, my point being, like, it doesn't. Still, like, you can still have some fun with this. You can still have some fun with that, and I would like to see that more often. I know we talked about, like, hot potato with the title. I think that's okay sometimes. Yeah, I think that's fine to see sometimes, and especially when you've got a super hot act like you do with Harley Cameron. Now I'm going to play counter, though. I'm going to play counter to this real fast, in that I agree with what you're saying, right?
But I think what this, because like Harley Cameron has been a rising star in AEW, you know, just from like her on camera appearances to her crowd reactions to just the way that the characters like also developed. So like she most definitely has seen significant growth. The thing is that I think that for them, they saw like, if Harley would have won, would that have overshadowed what gone on with Toni and Mariah? Maybe, maybe not, but I don't know if they wanted to take that risk. You know, like, because like I knew Buddy wasn't going to beat Okada, right? But I knew it was going to be a great matchup that was going to make Buddy look like a star, which is exactly what that match did. It did make him look like a legit threat, right?
Right.
Which is what you want, right? Because you got to build the Hounds of Hell up a little bit more, and they've always been legit threats, but they kind of need a little bit of like a reset because of the you know, the fall of the House of Black or whatever. But like for Harley Cameron, if she had won, that would have been the talk coming out of Grand Slam, I think, and not Toni Storm reclaiming the AEW Women's World Championship. Maybe I that's my belief. Just because like the noise for Harley Cameron going into the pay-per-view, or sorry, into the show itself was like quite big. Everyone was like, I think Harley's going to do it. I think Harley's going to do it. And like, it did feel like the conversation was shifting a little bit online from people feeling more like this is going to be Harley's event versus this is going to be Mercedes Mone and Toni and Mariah's like, you know, conclusion to their story.
But my question is like, what's wrong with that?
Oh no, like, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just expressing as devil's advocate.
But especially if that would have been the talk, then pull the trigger. Go where there's heat. Yeah, you always want to go where there's heat when in wrestling, and especially just, you know, with stories. Yeah. If that's where the story takes you and it's an interesting story, then tell it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it overshadows something, I think that's something that we often worry about too much, is like, well, this will overshadow this person's moment or this, then it's on that person to not let that happen. Yeah. It's on the people telling that story to not let that happen. I think I can't stand the idea of like, you know, well, we can't do this because it's going to outshine this person or it's going to take away from this person's moment. And I get that to an extent. But at the end of the day, tell the best story. Do the best match and forget about what's on the rest of the card. You can put it in, you know, the order it needs to be in or whatever. And I don't know that it necessarily would have overshadowed it. I think it still just would have been another hugely welcome thing. I think it could have boosted the discussion and discourse about it even more had it happened. And if that's going to get you more attention and get you more eyeballs on your product, who cares what story it is that brings it?
But that being said, and this is why I think, you know, like I'm glad we're this episode, because there isn't much else to talk about because Dynamite will be airing tonight. And then, you know, we'll find out where we go from there. Because, you know, like there are a few directions, right, that they can go in with this. I think that to kind of go back to the point that I was making before, one of the takeaways that I got from this was that Harley Cameron is a star. Harley Cameron is a draw. She is genuine. People do like her. So if you do decide, she's getting better. So if you do decide that you want to pull the trigger on a Harley Cameron TBS championship, I actually think you have all the capability to do so, for sure. I also think you can go to kind of tie it back to the Athena point that I was making before. You know, I think she has been on fire, like with some incredible matches, right? Like it has been, like she's been Ring of Honor Women's Champion for a hot minute now, but she's done some amazing work. And I think that it's kind of silly that she's still doing Ring of Honor when she should clearly be in AEW having 5-star matches against Mercedes Mone. And I think that if you are, you know, if you want to play the right path here, what I would like to see happen narratively is an Athena who says, I have done everything that there is to do in Ring of Honor. There's nothing left for me to accomplish. So thus I will drop the title. And then she moves on, kind of like what Asuka did NXT days, right? She drops the title, moves up to AEW, moves over to AEW, and just goes straight after Mercedes Mone and wins because she is like a legit contender. And that maybe that's good. And then what you do with the Ring of Honor title is you have a nice little open tournament for it. And then certain Harley Cameron can kind of swoop in, maybe pick up the win, get the belt. And you kind of like build up her like star power with that title a little bit. And you give her
on Ring of Honor,
on Collision, because she's been primarily on Collision. You know, like she's done some Dynamite stuff, like mostly like appearances, but her wrestling's been primarily on Collision. So, you know, so it seems like their tapings of Collision and Ring of Honor kind of overlap, if I'm thinking businessy. So it just kind of like fits. You know, you can kind of like have that blend together. I don't know. Mostly just theorizing, fantasy booking, if you will, just trying to be a little nerd and think about where things can go.
If you want to go the route of Athena, it only makes sense to me that she puts her title up against the person who's collecting them.
And that would also be a cool one as well. I actually wouldn't mind that one too. And then, you know, at that point, you got to see where you go, because what was the number? There are 54 belts right now. There are a lot of titles between major. Yeah, there's a lot of belts, man. So I don't know.
Yeah. But my question is, at this point now, what's the out with Mercedes?
Yeah. I don't know.
What is the end of this story? Because there does not seem to be one.
Well, and honestly, I would say, there is no story here. And that's part of the reason why, for people who listen to this, like, we don't really talk a lot about Mercedes Mone outside of like the good matches that she puts on, because she puts on good matches. But like story wise, there hasn't really been a lot to like, hasn't been a lot to really dive into. And that has been, you know, hopefully something that they can address. Let's go ahead and move on though, real quick, go through the rest of the card, because there obviously were a lot of big moments here. We'll briefly cover Okada versus Buddy Matthews. So he like injured himself, you said, on the way out. Which is unfortunate.
Interestingly enough, we talked about the ring issues. Apparently that was the issue. So when Buddy came out and did his entrance, he was up on the turnbuckle, and when he jumped down onto the ring, there was some uneven padding, and he twisted his ankle.
That's unfortunate.
And wrestled the entirety of that match with it, and still put on a hell of a match.
What a badass! Holy shit, that guy! I mean, an incredible performer without a doubt. Okada also was just a great opponent for someone like Buddy Matthews. I mean, this really, I think, showed the depth of talent in AEW's division, just in their overall, the men's division, because you can honestly like have pulled a name from a hat and you would have been able to pull off a high quality match like this. But to be able to do it with Buddy Matthews, a guy who really hasn't had much of an opportunity to be in the spotlight,
has not had his moment.
He's not had his moment.
And has long deserved it.
Yeah. And it was worth it. It was worth it. It was great to see.
It's refreshing to see him put on a similar threat level as Okada.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like he had his number a few times in that, and it took a low blow for Okada to win.
You know, I think theorizing where it goes, now that Buddy's injured, it'll be a little while, which, is unfortunate, but it could actually end up being a cool thing for those guys down the line, because now this is going to allow Brody King to kind of do his thing. We'll see what they end up doing with Brody King. So I expect him to be in some pretty big, high profile one-on-one matches, because they really, his stock is always high, Brody. But I do think that when Buddy comes back, and if the Hurt Syndicate still holds on to those tag titles, then I would like to see Hounds of Hell versus Hurt Syndicate for the belts. That it will be is when you think about the tag division in AEW, it has been very much the same kind of like wrestler. Like, actually, I want to do this. I want to do a little thought experiment real fast, because I want to see what were the AEW tag team champion list, right? And why I think the Hurt Syndicate is so unique in it, right? Because look, okay, so I found it here. Aha, blammo. Okay, so here we could see the lineage for those listening. I actually have pulled up the championship history for all the tag team champions, and when you look at it, it's a lot of like the same style of wrestler, right? Outside of like Swerve and Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland. That didn't last very long, if we remember. Then the Acclaim had their great run of 140 days, but those were very much like homegrown AEW guys, right? But it's always kind of just been like a particular type of wrestler, right? The Young Bucks, right? The Private Party group. But now you get over to like Hurt Syndicate, where like their whole gimmick is to be a aggressive, like violent, beat the shit out of you type of team that none of these teams ever really like personified, outside of, again, maybe Keith Lee, Swerve Strickland, but that was not a very long run. And when you look at it, I mean, FTR, like they've always
FTR, I think, is probably the closest. And
even then, their stories have always been about them being the best tag team. There's never really been much else outside of that. Not to say that that's bad, but that's just been their thing for a super long time. So I feel like, Jake, Hurt Syndicate provides AEW an opportunity to really tell some fun stories with like a brute force tag team. And who better than the Hounds of Hell than to be the ones to take them down, right? I don't know. That'd be the way I'd fantasy book it.
I mean, that would be interesting. But I don't know if you know this about the Hurt Syndicate and in particular Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley took the LSAT and got 100% on it because for every answer he wrote violence, because that's his answer for everything. And man, it's going to be so fun watching them just continue to reign over. I mean, they can have some incredible rivalries and matches. I think they need to hold the belts for a while.
I think so too. I don't think
they need to hold it for a while. And I think that they need to be allowed to do Freebird rules.
And have MVP fight.
I would love to see MVP get in there every now and then.
Well, dude, I mean, I don't want to.
He can still go.
I don't want to get into rumors, and I don't want to go into that territory. But Cedric Alexander is also a free agent now, I would be okay with Cedric Alexander because, like, honestly, I think the Hurt Syndicate has been like my favorite thing in AEW in a while. Like, not to say there haven't been a lot of things I enjoy because, like, for example, like Hangman Swerve, that was like legendary, like top 5 feuds for me. Loved every minute of it. But as far as like factions and stories goes, I just feel like Hurt Syndicate, they're nailing it. It's very clear that MVP has control of like the story that they're telling within the barrier that they have. And the moment that they give MVP that opening, oh boy. Yeah. Oh boy. It is. I think they're gonna find some real success if they go this route, because right now Hurt Syndicate is looking phenomenal. But anyway, that's us, theorizing what could be the future for Buddy Matthews. But there was another big tag team match we'll also cover here that happened, which was the Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega going up against Don Callis family. We kind of knew again what was going to happen here. It's Kenny Omega's first match in an AEW ring back in action. So it makes sense that it would end with Kenny Omega getting the one-winged angel off on to Konosuke Takeshita, but not just a one-winged angel, Jake. A one-winged angel with the hidden blade.
The hidden blade, yep.
And I will be honest with you, when they did this, I was like, wait a minute. What if we went into a world where Kenny and Will were a tag team? Wait a minute. But I don't think that's going to happen. But it was still so fucking sick. I want to get your thoughts on this matchup. What'd you think of it?
I mean, it was another incredible match. You got 4 people who all have great chemistry together. 2 of the greatest in-ring performers today, if not all time, with Ospreay and Omega. But it was another fun match. The result was what we expected it to be, but it was still a lot of fun. And we did set up a future, a Revolution cage match.
Yeah.
Between Ospreay and Fletcher, which ought to be very interesting.
I like that because, they've traded. I think that will be number 3. They've gone back and forth now. Both of their characters have gone through some incredible journeys. I have really enjoyed the story of Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher in AEW. It has been a fun run.
Steel cage, bruv.
And I think that this is a feud worthy of a steel cage match. 100% worthy of a steel cage match. This is going to be violent, athletic. It's going to be like the acrobatic version of what CM Punk and Drew McIntyre was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm expecting, and I'm very excited about it. Also, did want to cover real fast before we move on. Kenny Omega's entrance, which was just so fucking epic. With the Final Fantasy score from Nobuo Uematsu, is like it just felt like I was watching a Final Fantasy. Like that was crazy to me. Like I have loved Final Fantasy for years. It was the second RPG that I ever got a chance to finish. First being Skies of Arcadia on Dreamcast. Shout out to anyone who knows that. And I never thought I'd hear a wrestler come out with a Final Fantasy themed entrance, and that was just cool. It was like when Adam Cole came out dressed like as Master Chief, and I was like, okay, this is.
Or Ospreay with the Assassin's Creed stuff.
Ospreay with the Assassin's Creed stuff. Yeah, exactly. It's just cool. I love that stuff. It's amazing. But anyway, let's go ahead though, move on real fast and talk about timeless Toni Storm and Mariah May doing what we knew they were going to do, which was steal the show in Australia. A top tier matchup. Two wrestlers that are absolutely at the peak of their talent right now. It was just a joy to watch. But everything about that, like Luther showing up was amazing. You know, the Toni Storm intro into the Timeless stuff was also great.
I didn't like that, actually.
You don't like that? You didn't like that? It wasn't necessary, but I
didn't think we needed it.
But we know
who she is now.
It was the thing that connected both of them, though, which I thought was the point of it, which, you know, because they both did the thing. They both were doing the Toni Storm thing. It was kind of like, because, you know, Mariah comes out. It was like a reminder of like, this is, you know, how it all started. You thinking you could be me. But now we get into this matchup and they're going back and forth. You don't know where it's going to go. And what happens is that Toni Storm wins with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment. The surprise roll up and got the win. Jake, your thoughts on that, on the story of Toni Storm and Mariah May ending in one of the most classic wrestling moves that you could possibly imagine, the surprise roll up.
You know, at first I wasn't a big fan of the roll up win to start. I was like, at first, because it just kind of happened, and then I was like, oh shit, that's how she wins her title back. But the more I thought about it, I was like, you know, it makes sense. Because to me, like, I always enjoy, you know, I enjoy the matches where it's just, you know what, I was able to pin them because I beat the ever living shit out of them. Yeah. And they couldn't move. They couldn't answer a 3 count. But I do like when a wrestler just outsmarts another. Or catches somebody off guard.
It was also
and it works.
How it was, yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But it works because to me it's the mentor saying to the mentee, "I didn't teach you everything.
Yeah,
there's still a future. You thought you were me. You thought I taught you everything there was to know about being a professional wrestler, about what it takes to be at this level. Nah. I kept a little bit aside for myself. You gotta be a little quicker than that if you're going to pull one over on the new champ. Yeah, Toni Storm.
I liked it. Again, I was in a very similar boat where it happened, and I was like, surprise roll up. Oh, that's cool, but surprise roll up, and then like as I continued to just like mill on it a little bit more. When I was like writing like the run of show and thinking about it, I was like, you know what though, man, like Toni Storm winning with a surprise roll up, just for a person who was playing a classic character, doing some like, elaborate, weird move to like finish the story of Toni and Mariah. But just, you know what? I like what you said. It's like you think you had it all figured out, but in the end, you were never ready for timeless.
Just when they think they've got
Toni
all
Storm.
the answers, I change the question.
Exactly. And I think that I really, really like that. That was a cool way to kind of put a pin on this story.
It's not over.
No. I mean, if there's one thing we've learned from Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, this shit it ends when they're dead.
Yeah.
that's when it's going to end.
And Mariah, like, she sold it like it was, I mean, like when the loss happened, she just was in shock.
Devastated.
Devastated. Like this was the worst thing that's ever happened to her. There's no way that this is over. As a matter of fact, I could see it being some kind of steel cage or some kind of gimmick match to be the final.
That wouldn't hurt. Actually, or like maybe
now
like
they're 1-1. If you think about it that way, they're 1-1.
I'd also wouldn't mind like an I Quit match. You know what I mean? Between them.
Yeah.
Right. Something that is different, that would very much like get one of them to concede that the other one is better, because I kind of feel like that's what you need for the conclusion of the story, right? Because like Toni Storm, and like, look, ultimately, like I do think that it ends up as Toni Storm, the seasoned veteran who's who's literally at the peak of her game right now, would be the one to come out on top. Because Mariah May, she's a young wrestler. She is this is not her last AEW World Championship. But on that same note, Toni Storm, first 4-time AEW Women's World Champion, which is a really, really cool way to kind of honor, I think, an individual who's genuinely brought a lot to AEW. Well, that was, of course, Grand Slam Australia. Now, you're probably wondering, but GB, there was a little bit more to the event. That's right, because AEW Revolution is around the corner, and Australia already set the stage for what we can expect going into Revolution right here in Los Angeles, because the Death Riders came out on top, and we did not see that one coming, people, because we were hard committed that it was going to be a Cope and Jay White like love fest where they were going to take a victory lap and do some cool moves and celebrate with the crowd in Australia. But instead, it was Cope getting choked out while Jay White watched. Jake, your thoughts? He hasn't, just so you know, you're not your audio listeners, Jake hasn't said anything yet. He is still in a state of stun.
I just feel like we're spinning our wheels. I feel like this car is stuck in the mud. We're all getting out trying to push this car out of the fucking mud, and the tires are just spinning, throwing more everywhere. I don't know where this is going. I mean, how come? Why? And Matt's not here to say it, but it's the same question that I've had, and I'm going to say it for him. Why the fuck is no one worried about outside interference?
Yeah.
Why have we not addressed
this
the
very
multiple
clear issue?
Elephants in the room?
Yeah. Well, I think that's what this match did, which is stupid because it's been doing it for a while now. But when we factor in how, like, for example, when Copeland comes back, he comes back with FTR. So they end up confronting the, Death Riders. And because they're kind of in this, 3v3 situation, they end up like winning, and, they do like quite well. Right. Mm-hmm. And then, we were left wondering, like, well, the Death Riders haven't like won. They haven't like had success in a while. So that kind of led us to the belief that, like, well, they're probably going to be sunsetting the Death Riders. The problem is that you still have a lot of TV that you have to fill between now and Revolution. And I actually think that Mox winning is the, if it wasn't going to be Jay White pinning Mox to then set up the angle of a potential triple threat, because Jay White wanted to force himself in there, like kind of soft turning his back on Copeland because they were like forming this friendship. I would have liked that. I think that would have been a really cool story. But if they're going to go this route, then with this route, I think you have to tell the story of why the Death Riders are constantly getting away with interference.
Yes.
And you got to hammer down a stipulation that prevents that. So that's why the theme of this is, but is the main event set in stone? I actually don't know if it's set in stone yet because of this result.
Because of this loss. Yeah, I don't either. Like it feels like.
But I actually kind of like it though.
But like I
like the mystery. If I'm being honest with you, I kind of like being strung along a little bit with this, just because it would have been lame if they were just like, we're doing the match, and then that's it. You don't? Okay.
Because if there were more meat on this bone than there is, then I could deal with a little intrigue.
Can we make the case that they're adding meat to the bone? Can we make that case?
Maybe, but I feel like the meat's vegan. Like it's synthetic. It's not real. It's artificial. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like we're just adding for the sake of adding.
We got some vegan meat.
It ain't meat.
Hey, I'm just saying though, vegan meat is good. Okay, Beyond Meat is delicious, but it ain't meat.
Shockingly, it is very good.
But it ain't meat.
But no, it ain't meat. I mean, just like. I feel like we still don't know anything about the Death Riders too. Yeah. They keep the title in this briefcase for some nebulous philosophical reason. It's not the nuclear football. Then explain more instead of speaking in these vague terms like you're a not even a good cult leader. Just one who's trying to pull one over on everybody. Give me more to this or get it off my plate.
Well, and I do think though that Mox winning in Australia kind of sets up them to have him drop that belt in LA. I don't know why, just a gut feeling, because it was a big event, right? They put a lot of stock into the advertising and whatnot for the event. So they wanted to really hammer home, in my opinion, the vibe that I got from it was John Moxley and the Death Riders is still a threat. And they're always going to be a threat until you separate one from the other, right? That's the story that I've kind of come to understand as they are telling it. Which is why I said, now if we get ready for this Revolution match, it needs to be a stipulation of, hey, Death Riders can't interfere. How do we prevent them from interfering? Or do you do a lumberjack match? Because that's another really cool angle that you can maybe take with it.
But even if it's you can't be at ringside, they're still gonna. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why I like the idea of a lumberjack match or something like that. Like something where you can kind of play to the idea of it's AEW versus the Death Riders because they're just tired of their crap. And then,
they just need to do an outside interference results in a change of title.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just add that.
Yeah.
Add that.
There's,
because the fact that Cope and Jay White even agreed to a match like this was stupid. Would you really think it was just going to be a 2-on-2 the whole time? Come on, guys. I know you're smarter than that. Edge, you used to play that numbers game better than anybody.
Yeah. Shout out to the Edge heads.
Yeah. And now and now you're just falling for it again. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
there is also an argument to be made as well about how you have people who when the good guy's an idiot, and it's kind of it's kind of hard to buy into it when the good guy is making a dumb decision, because you're hey guys, we see it. It's pretty obvious what's happening here. Pay attention. But then again, though, we do live in a time where people don't pay attention to the obvious. So maybe they got to beat the audience head over with the storylines. I don't know.
Maybe so.
In any case, it doesn't change my excitement for Evolution, because if there's one thing that I just know is that this show will bang and it is going to be a good show. They constantly deliver on these big events, and they're really painting Revolution as a big turning point for them, but they've been doing that a lot lately. And I will say that, because I'm noticing it, all these promos about how this is the the change, and like a World's End, he's like coming around with a fucking with the flare, or like in Grand Slam, they're like, it's gonna be massive, and it's like, don't get me wrong, they have been, but not in the way that they not in the way I think the audience is looking for. So yeah, because it's weird though.
I don't know. This whole storyline is Chinese food to me. I'll eat it and I'll keep eating it, but I just am left.
But the moment you give me a good steak, I'm there, and
I'm just left still hungry. Like I'm hungry. I just watched that and I'm like, yeah, that was fine. I want some more, but there's not in it. Like I'm not feeling completely fulfilled and satisfied by the story, and I want to be. That's the thing, is like, it's not that, like, I'm not gonna shit on a storyline and then just be like, oh, I want it to be good. I want it to be better. Give me more reason to care about it. But because right now I just don't.
Yeah. Like, it's tough.
And there's really the only title that I care about right now is the women's title, the women's world title, and the men's tag titles.
Yeah.
The rest of the titles, what are we doing?
And that should tell you something, because I think there was a point in time where, the argument was being made that, like, the women's division was like the division that was struggling the most and so on and so forth. But I honestly feel like the women's division is
probably the strongest part of AEW right now.
It 100% is. And they have a lot to be, happy about with that, obviously. But also, I think it's like just kind of startling how, like, this story started off so promising and then took a very, interesting flat turn. That doesn't mean it can't be salvaged. That doesn't mean, like, it's not entertaining, because it still is. Good matches are still being had. So, like, I'm still enjoying the matches that are being given to me. It's one thing if, like, the story was bad and the matches were, and they had, like, no chemistry, but, like, they definitely do. And in those aspects, it has been exciting. But I think everyone is in that same boat where they're like, all right, let's just go ahead and move forward here, because we really haven't gotten much meaningful movement, but yet everywhere else in AEW, and maybe that is by design, because it does feel like everywhere else in AEW, we have seen significant growth. Whereas in the title picture, it's been a little stagnant, and I want to view that as a bad thing, but I can't help but feel like, if anything, that just means that now AEW is better equipped to insert, an MJF into the title picture if they want to, a Swerve Strickland, a Hangman Adam Page, an Orange Cassidy, if they want to take Christian Cage, throw him in there as well, which is more than likely going to happen. Heck, even Samoa Joe, right? Like, they're doing a lot of really interesting things there. So anyway, I digress on that. It's going to be interesting.
Speaking of Christian Cage, do we think he's leaving Revolution as the new AEW champion?
I want to say yes, but that would be, like, too obvious. So I would like to see Christian kind of cash in on an episode of Dynamite, like in a rematch environment. You know what I mean? Like, okay. Yeah, like have Cope, like, because that feels like a thing Christian would do. Oh, you're champion. Oh, for a day. Oh, shame. Oh, it'd be a real shame if I just walked in on your first title defense and stole the belt from you. Oh, big shame. It does seem like a thing that Christian would do to Copeland. So I think
but hey, if outside interference is banned, or if they simply just say the Death Riders are banned from ringside, doesn't mean that the
patriarchy are banned. Exactly. Let's go ahead, though, since we only have a few more minutes left, and dive in to, of course, the best segment, our Rebooked 24/7 Champion of the Week. Where, of course, this is where we talk about the thing that brought us the most joy in the world of wrestling, or just in general. I'm going to go first because this is coming from our awesome editor, Scan, who, if you're in the Discord, which, by the way, join the Rebooked Discord, you should. There was a really sick moment, the moment of the year, Evo moment 38, which was basically, if you don't know about esports, let me go ahead and move this graphic here. If you're not familiar with esports, Evo is like the largest fighting game tournament for games like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, and it's been prolific. It's been around for years and years and years. It's an institution at this point in the fighting game community, and every year they do an award show where it's been recent, but this year they've been putting it out there more and more, where they award like the best player, the commentators, the events. It's awesome. It's meant for the community and for Evo specifically. Evo Moment 38 was this awesome gameplay moment between these two guys where this guy like parried and completely blocked something and then did this awesome drop kick where he dodged Ken's like attack. I could probably show it, but I don't want to get demonetized or banned or anything, so I'm gonna play it safe. If you want to look it up, check out Evo Moment 38. But the guy who won that, Hayo, he celebrated by recreating the drop kick that won him a championship.
Holy crap.
And he did the drop kick that Hugo did that bypassed Ken's super ability. And I'm just saying, and also shout out to my guy Tasty Steve over here. Oh, you can't see it maybe, but he's like absolutely like, hey, he's like losing his mind. Tasty Steve is a legend, by the way, absolute gem of a human. But yeah, Evo Moment 38, that was from our editor Scan, a crazy moment, and it just looked freaking cool. And congratulations to Hayo for that one. Pretty dope moment. Do you have your 24/7 champion of the week?
Yeah, I think that I do.
Okay.
I think what I'm ultimately going to go with, like, look, my 24/7 champion of the week is no stranger to high fashion.
I think I know where you're going, and you're going to be blown away when I'm already prepared.
But last night on Monday Night Raw, my man Seth Rollins came out dressed as a cherry pie.
Oh my God! Yes, I gotta find this picture.
He was dressed like a cherry pie. Like it was like just a lattice shirt. But you got to find the picture. He looked he came out. I was like,
well, not his attire, right? It wasn't his attire, because his attire.
No. Not what he wore at one point during Monday Night Raw. I got to find that too, because I mean.
It was really funny. Well, actually, while you go ahead and find that,
found it.
Oh, go ahead. And
someone else agrees.
Go ahead and link it to me, please.
Yeah, it's.
But while I find that, I'm gonna give you real quick my 24/7 champion, because I think in the spirit of high fashion, we have to talk about, when you don't really know the identity or the direction of your storyline, and you're not quite sure how you want to, market that to an audience, this is what you end up with. The white Death Rider shirt. Now, I understand that Jon Moxley wears white shirts, and I get it. I understand what they're doing here. I'm not saying it's like I get it. There's a reason, but I cannot in good faith tell anyone to say, buy this white t-shirt.
Yeah. I mean, look,
the comment said, does it come in a 5-pack for 20?
This to me sums up the Death Riders storyline right now. It is the white t-shirt of storylines right now. I'm being sold this as if it's a piece of high fashion that I must own. That's been the storyline for the Death Riders to me. I
don't get it. I really don't get it. And
I don't either.
I am not trying to be a hater, but because I do genuinely try to look for the good in things, but I just don't really see what the value of that is. No. I'm struggling with it, man. I'm struggling. No. Did you send it to me?
I can make that at home for $1.19.
Oh, yes. That's right.
That shirt. Yes. This is the one that I'm talking about. This
is right here can only be described as a crime against humanity. For sure.
He legit looks like a cherry pie.
This is too much. when enough is enough, when enough is enough.
It looks like he cut off like the seat of like patio furniture, like old patio furniture, and just draped it over himself as a shirt.
Oh,
I don't understand.
You know what's great? Cynthia saw that. Gets this shit. My wife saw that and she was like, "I think you could pull that off." And I was like, "No. GB, no. We have to find that shirt and you have to wear it. I just don't want a nipple to just because they
don't. There's no way they make it in my size. I would do it, but there's no way they make it in my size.
I should get it and then I should wear like a red shirt underneath it to just look like a cherry pie. Oh my goodness.
A white t-shirt with Death Riders written on the bottom in Sharpie.
Exactly. Oh man. All right, everyone. Well, that's going to do it for us here today. We thank you so much for tuning in. Just a reminder, Matt won't be with us this week. He'll be joining back next week. And of course we have our WWE show, our Friday show that's going to go up right on the same time as this goes up on Friday. So you can expect it in the morning, right in your inbox, whether you're listening on audio or you're watching and joining us here on YouTube. But do not forget to join our Discord community. You'll find a link for the description down below. We got a great group of people over there just talking about wrestling, sharing things, having a good time. We're building it out little by little, and it's meant to be fun, inclusive, and positive. So if that's something that you want to be a part of, we'd love to have you. But in any case, see you Friday for our next show, and we'll catch you then. Peace.